But oh my God, it's Paul and Neal.
They're like, you gotta shut this off immediately.
Nepal.
Oh, these fucking idiots again. Should we call this something?
Oh God.
Should we have a name for this crap? I know I had something at one point.
Yeah, it was some
Um,
fucking racist shit.
nah, well, I
Anti-Semitic.
don't. I don't mean the Jew and the Dago one.
Do you need it now, or could we pick it after the
Nah, we
show?
could pick it up when we go.
Maybe it'll
But
organically happen in the conversation.
it may organically happen. So why don't I like kind of introduce this a little bit? Do like a little introduction. So if people are watching, they don't just think there's two idiots, recording each other.
Right.
And I mean, I even have like, I even got like intro music. If you want it. Go ahead, get it. Get that last bit of vodka. All right, so me and Neal have been in kind of the entertainment Hollywood business for a lot of different years. I was a stand-up comic. My name's Paul Dell'Angelo, writer. I worked on the radio, and Neal Gumple is a Hollywood writer who has written many big movies and TV shows and stuff like that. And we're going to start doing this a little more often, where maybe give a little bit of insight on, not only Hollywood, but we comment on different things. Neal, why don't you tell everyone kind of a little bit about yourself and what you've done for the people who don't know who you are?
Well, I got into screenwriting at a very late age, in my mid 30s, and I had no desire. It was by accident. I accidentally became a screenwriter, which is why a lot of people in Hollywood, especially writers, hate me. I wrote something on a yellow pad, and by accident, Jim Sheridan, famous director who did, My Left Foot and Name of the Father, all this other stuff, Academy, he found it in my apartment when he was looking to sublet the apartment. And that launched me into a career because he bought the project.
I want to do something with you. And I had mentioned earlier how Neal is a Hollywood writer, but he doesn't watch TV or movies.
No,
So I want to play some scenes for you from some movies and get your reaction. Now, I have some scenes that are from like, I was going to do like the number one movie right now that's out, or I could do like a scene from a famous movie that probably you have never seen before because, you don't watch fucking movies. Well, what do you want? You want to see the number one movie right now, or do you want?
I have no idea. I mean, I've heard about Barbie. That's the only thing I've heard about.
Okay, I'm sure you're a big Barbie fan.
I mean, I just heard about it because I'm like, what the fuck?
That's what's her name? Margot Robbie.
I don't know who Margot Robbie is.
You don't know who Margot Robbie is? She's like one of the top actresses right now. Sex symbol, hottest actress. This is right now in the world the number one movie.
Your attention, please. I'm going to burn this place to the ground.
The Beekeeper.
Let's see what you think of this. Number one.
Blessing, Mr. Clay. This place was crabgrass and weeds, and you brought it back to life.
Mrs. Parker and I were friends. She was like family. She was the only person who ever took care of me.
I just got a message saying that there's a problem with my computer.
Yes, ma'am, we got this.
Yesterday, she shot herself.
This is private property.
Do you know what they do here? Scamming the weakest in our society.
Buddy, I'm counting to 3.
1, 2, 3. There, I did it for you. I'm gonna burn this place to the ground.
Will you stomp his ass out?
You're telling me one man did this. The only thing you know is he's a beekeeper.
A beekeeper, a beekeeper? Well, that's not good.
Beekeepers is a special program outside the chain of command.
I protect the hive. When the system is out of balance, I correct it.
We have laws for these things.
Until they fail, then you have me.
This is the stupidest thing I've
My
ever
fingers,
seen.
cut them off. What the fuck, bro?
I'm gonna stop.
Listen, see, I'm actually kind of annoyed right now.
But this is why I did it.
Let me tell you something. Yeah, I can pour myself something. As I'm talking.
So the premise of the movie is
I saw enough. Okay, don't pitch it to me, okay?
I mean, could you imagine being in this pitch fucking meeting?
This hits close to home because 2 days ago we were over.
You wrote a movie about a fucking butterfly keeper.
I wrote no, the other day. I pulled off the road because there's a beekeeper who lives next to us, and he has a sign, "Fresh honey." And I want to buy honey for my friend Andrea. I want to get her some honey to send her the honey. And then Helen said, not the right kind of honey, you got a different kind of honey. So the other day we went over to buy honey from this guy. So we're looking at all these honey things, but it was cold out, so they're not flying around. And Helen wants to work for him because she's obsessed with this. So then we've been talking about beekeeping for 3 days, and all of a sudden you show that to me. So what if I called up a fucking studio for a pitch and said, I have an idea. He's a beekeeper. And he decides to right the wrongs in his old beat up Ford truck, and he's going to go out and he's going to massacre all these people and take down this company as a beekeeper. They would tell me to get the fuck off the lot. Like, what are you, nuts? Yeah, I don't. Or they would say, we'll buy it. I don't know. So what do you do?
Somebody pitched that a beekeeper, the only person that he fucking loved, fucking got snaked for money and she killed herself, and now he goes on a killing rampage. And that not only did they buy and produce the movie, but it's #1 in the world.
I actually get bile up into my throat when I see this stuff. I actually get like I have to throw up. Well, we should do one called, let me see, the Ice Cream Man. We could do one.
Okay, here. Now I'm going to play a couple.
The Cobbler.
You better not fuck with that beekeeper. Did you see that trailer? You better be nice to that guy when you go get honey. You fucking get killed. I know you're a big rap fan, so I could even play some rap music for you, Neal.
I'm a big rap fan.
Are you?
Yeah. My grandson is he's a white rapper, a little 13-year-old white rapper.
Oh, is he? Has he got
he's all over the place. He just got a record deal.
Really?
His name is Jace James.
He's
also a classical pianist. Drummer,
really,
saxophone, everything. He just did a jazz club in New York last week.
Who's
jazz, and then he'll do like he DJs up in Westchester County. The county hires him to play concerts and shit, like DJing and rapping shit.
That's amazing.
Skinny little white,
and he's 13.
13. Jace James.
Jace James. See, a lot of the kids now, they put that little in front of all their names, like Little Uzi and Little fucking whatever. So he went a little more original.
Well, like 2 years ago, I was just talking about this day. 2 years ago, my daughter said, oh, guess what? P. Diddy and these guys opened up this rap school in New York, and he's been invited. I say, he ain't going to no fucking rap school with P. Diddy. You know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah. And they run this rap thing that goes for a couple of days, and the parents drop the kids off and say, yeah, you're fucking mind. My daughter goes, Dad, you're nuts. You imagine this stuff. I say, I don't imagine anything. They're all a bunch of fucking pedophiles. I knew that shit.
Well, I know P. Diddy right now is like kind of on the outs, you know, like
he's probably going to jail soon.
That's what I'm saying. You know, he might be going to jail.
Yeah.
I didn't realize your grandson was a musician like that. That's pretty cool.
And he taught himself everything. No classes.
Really?
He just plays. You could just look at his videos. Jace James. Yeah. It's like a freak.
Well, if anybody's out there watching this, they should go look them up. So when I got diagnosed with cancer and then COVID hit, I always wanted to make music and I always wrote lyrics. I was like home, because of COVID. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start trying to fucking make music. I started writing lyrics and making stuff. And, I guess I got a little decent at it. It got me through a tough time, when I was sick.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's COVID was screwed up because I had a problem with my throat at the time, which was pretty bad, and it was like couldn't even go get treatment really because all the treatment places were completely booked. They had up at Yale, New Haven, they had hospital beds out in the parking lot for people for chemo and all this other stuff. So I did alternative stuff. I went completely alternative.
Yeah, well, when I got sick, one of the things that I started looking into was I had a couple of these cancer doctors that were like, we're going to do chemo for like a year. And I was like, man, this sounds fucking crazy. So I started looking into like the alternative medicine, and it's kind of crazy what other countries do compared to us. And I get a friend of mine that works at a couple of friends of mine that work at Penn in Philadelphia. And the one doctor said to me, yo, dude, these cancer doctors make more money off of cancer drugs than anything else.
Yeah.
So like I like there's some countries that use like high doses of vitamin C. So I started trying to do some different shit myself.
Well, I think my friend Dave Frigerio, he talks about it. He's a director, writer, producer. He went through horrible cancer for a couple of years, and he just finally flew away, went over to, I don't know, I think it was Switzerland or something like that. And it was like they use traditional medicine, but mixed with this C and all this other stuff, and he's fine now. He's fine.
It's crazy. Like Europe uses a lot of those countries. They use a lot of that vitamin C stuff, man, like really high doses of vitamin C. And it like has a high success rate. It sounds crazy, but when you actually research it, you're like, dude, for years after I got diagnosed, I was taking like a couple thousand milligrams a day of vitamin C just in case.
Right.
I figured it can't fucking hurt. I actually just read this article, and it's about these Hunans people, and they live somewhere like kind of up near the mountains, like somewhere like kind of near like Palestine and Israel. Their life expectancy is 120 years.
Yeah.
And has been for like centuries. Yeah. A lot of their people live to like 150 years old.
Well, they eat that Dannon yogurt. That's why.
I think it is the Dannon yogurt. Yeah. And the men, they say they empty their bag at least once a day, and it gets the poison out.
So, I do that.
Yeah, you're probably going to live to 300.
Yeah. One of the things, I talked to a doctor years ago before I got completely freaked out about being ill. I just said, I was probably in my late 30s, maybe 40s, somebody in LA, well-known doctor. And I said, just in case I get cancer someday, what do you do if you get diagnosed with like liver, pancreatic cancer, like the big one? He goes, what would I do? What would I do to my patients, or what would I do? I said, what would you do? He says, I'd starve myself. I'd stop eating. I'd just drink water. I wouldn't eat anything. This is long before we heard about intermittent fasting, which I'm doing now. I've been doing that for a while. He says, that's what I do. I said, why? He goes, because cancer cells are very lazy. And what they do is they go right for, not cancer. Cancer goes for weak cells. You know what I mean? When you're eating a bunch of food, it's basically they're going to eat the cancer cells. Your body's going to eat the cancer cells before it eats the regular cells.
Well, that actually that makes sense, because when I read this article about these people, they go like during their like really slow time of the year where they don't have crops and stuff like that, they fast for like 3 months. They literally like live on like it's like a shake. It's like an apricot shake. Um, they're on a balanced diet of fresh vegetables, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. They avoid all processed foods, which help prevent chronic disease and play. Apparently, like they're cancer free too, and like terminal ill disease free. Like no one, they apparently they've been being studied for like 100 years, because it's the only place in the world that no one has ever gotten cancer. So, and it's not, they say it's not just these apricots. They do a fasting thing, like you're saying, for up to 3 months a year. And they have the apricots are real big in that region. So they do like they drink like apricot smoothies or something and drink water for that like 3 month period, and that's it.
Yeah, it's really weird because now it's I mean, I was doing this shit myself a couple of years ago, and everyone said you should try intermittent fasting. I said, what's that? They said, well, you just don't eat. You get up in the morning, you don't eat, and you won't be hungry really if you don't eat anything. Don't eat anything, not even a cracker. And about, if you could go through the whole day, so you go to bed at 12, let's say. So by 12 the next day, that's 12 hours, right? So you haven't eaten anything other than water for 12 hours, right? So if you could push it to 6 o'clock, now you're up to 18 hours. At 16 hours, which would be 4 o'clock in the afternoon, your body every day begins to eat any unfriendly cells in the body. At 12 hours, you cleaned your system out. That's okay. But at 16 hours, your body begins to eat any unfriendly cells. So I eat once a day. I haven't eaten yet. I'll probably eat like 10 o'clock tonight.
I haven't eaten all day. I mean, I do this constantly, and
I'm drinking. Yeah, I'm drinking vodka. But, you know.
Well, that's okay. That's they say that's good for you anyway.
The Hounanis drink vodka too.
Exactly.
Apricot.
The Hunans, it's apricot vodka. I a lot of days I get so fucking busy, but I don't know if I could like consciously fast because I'm too fat, and I'll like start craving fucking pizza and burgers and shit like that, and I won't be able to like go. But I could unconsciously, especially from working in the restaurant and doing stand up, like you're constantly on the run. The next thing you know, you're like, holy shit, I haven't eaten all fucking day.
Well, I know if I go through old photos of me over the years, the only times that, well, there were a few times when I looked thin and actually good, like some muscle tone. Twice when I was homeless, that helped. But the other times were when I had a
lot of
restaurant in
homeless
Hawaii.
people are really handsome. You know, I think that's a new LA thing that they're going to do now, is that they're going to all start being homeless intermittently to be more handsome and pretty.
Yeah. It's derelict meets.
Yeah, it's the derelict diet.
We'll do the t-shirts.
I always used to say I go on when I need to lose weight, I'll go on a crank diet. And I would just do crank for like 3 months, and I'd lose all kinds of weight. And you accomplish a lot.
You get that little Brad Pitt jaw going. Yeah. Yeah. So when I worked in New York, I worked at Dina DeLuca, which we had a big floor, big showroom floor, hot kitchen, downstairs, upstairs, everything. I ended up becoming a manager of the prepared foods, busy. I had the tightest little ass. I looked like a peachy ass. It was like the perfect little male ass. And I remember it was my waist was 30, 30, 30, inseam 30, 30. It was perfect. Starving. No, it was because you're not eating. You're picking at things. You're tasting things all day. You're constantly, the chefs who say, try this. But you're running around. And at the end of the day, the last thing you want to do is eat. You just go out and have a couple beers. That's
Well,
how
it
you go
is.
to
And
bed.
people always used to say to me, like, oh, you must eat this food all the time. And like, dude, I don't want to look at this fucking food. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I worked at a high-end steakhouse and seafood house. They'd be like, oh, I bet you eat lobster every day. I'm like, eat lobster? I don't want to see a fucking lobster. Like, I'd rather go get a slice of fucking pizza or a Subway fucking sandwich than eat this shit that I look at every day.
Yeah, because I was tasting shit all day. And I had to
Mhm.
taste all the prepared foods and catering shit. So it was like, so for me, I get a bagel. If it was late at night, I was like munchies. I just eat a bagel, maybe half a bagel. But then when I had my restaurant in Hawaii, it was the same thing. I went there real fatty, and within 2 months, man, I lost like 30 pounds.
What's a real fatty to you, though? Because I got a feeling that you saying I mean, if you were a 30, dude, I haven't seen a 30-inch waist since I was like in third fucking grade. So, like, if
I'll
you
send you.
say,
I got the evidence. I will send you the pictures. Remember, I was
mean,
once a pole vaulter. I was once a pole vaulter
okay,
in my high school years. I didn't say I got over the pole, but I did. I was a pole vaulter.
okay. Well, I knew a couple pole vaulters when I worked at Stern. Those girls used to come in a lot. They used to say they said they were porn stars, but I think pole vaulter was another term.
Well, also living in San Francisco, I lived in San Francisco. You're just walking up and down the hills all day.
There's a lot of pole vaulters in San Francisco, isn't
There's
there?
a lot of pole vaulters with 30-inch waists.
Yes.
Yeah.
You had to be like,
it's really,
you were like fresh meat.
I think we got something going here. It's the idea of we get a group of people with money who want to lose a lot of weight, and we just bring them to San Francisco and take away their money, their credit cards, their phone, and have them be homeless for a couple of months. You'll lose fucking weight there so quick you won't know what happened.
I mean, honestly, if you really want them to lose a lot of weight, is you put them out on the street, you make them homeless, but you give them a lot of money, because probably half the time they're going to be chased by all the other homeless people, so they'll be running away from getting mugged too.
Yeah, just tape like large bills to the back of their heads or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Earlier, I heard you saying, because you're Mr. Mom, so you were preparing pasta for the kids, right?
Yeah, I made them clams and spaghetti.
See, I'm impressed. I was going to ask you, what did you put on the pasta? Clams.
Yeah, I made a white sauce with some like clams and a little bit of scallops, not a lot, but mainly
scallops
clams
too.
Yeah,
that's expensive. That's very expensive.
I mean, I didn't go crazy, just a little bit to throw a little bit more in there. But yeah, I mean, these kids don't realize how lucky they are. I mean, I make like shit I would make at the restaurant, for them all the time.
I used to years ago, I'd go get the canned clams, right? But over the last 5-6 years, you look at the ingredients, they have all kinds of weird shit in them now. I don't know what all these glutamates and weird shit. It used to just be clams, salt water, salt water clams. And now those same companies, they got these weird shit in them. So every time I do it, I get clams,
What brand did you used to buy?
Well, there was Snow's, there was Bumblebee. All of them were pretty clean.
Yeah.
But now it's like they're all got the same shit in them,
Yeah, the Italian Roma ones. Did you ever see those and the Centos?
Yeah, I know Cento, yeah.
So like I typically buy the Cento ones because it's clams and fucking water.
Really?
Like yeah, sometimes they'll have the ones where they got like Italian seasonings in it and stuff like that too, but it doesn't have all kinds of preservatives.
Yeah, because
that's what I just used.
Yeah, I'm spoiled because where I lived up in Connecticut, year round, I would get the most beautiful cherry stones myself. Even in the winter, I put my waders on, go off into not Niantic, New London, Connecticut. We'd go out there, Helen and I, with the things, and we'd get the rake, and we bring home. You could bring up to a 5-gallon bucket of clams for 2 people year round.
Really?
In the middle of the winter time, that's the best clams. They're cold. They're a little deeper down. They're about 8 inches down, but you dig up a bunch of these cherry stones and quahogs, and they're the best in the world. And we used to put them on pizza. We make pizza and put the clams all over the pizza. I'm making myself hungry.
Yeah, yeah, you ain't gonna be intermittent fasting much longer. We keep talking like this. I love the cherry stones. I'm not a big like the big giant clams. I was never a huge fan of it. I like the cherry stone ones. They're my favorites. I used to go up to Maine once in a while, and I went lobster fishing once up there. And the other time we were up there, my buddy he dug up clams because when we were younger, we used to like go on road trips a lot, because we didn't have a lot of fucking money. And, we would go to like, take a road trip to Maine or take a road trip to Florida. And the one time we went up there, my buddy was like digging up clams but we were like cooking them at fucking like a campfire. But I mean, they were still good.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah, it's really good.
We caught a lobster, Neal. I swear to God to you, the claw alone was the size of my fucking hand. It was huge. The lobster had to be about 10 fucking pounds. The lobster was so like big that we had to take a rock and smash the claw and stuff with a rock because we couldn't get it broken open.
Yeah. Now I have a picture right here. I don't know how I would send it to you, of a 25-pound lobster. I worked in the fish market in New York, as you know, but in later years, just up until a few years ago, after I left Hollywood and everything in Connecticut, I took a job in the fish business there doing catering, cooking meals for catering things. Helen and I would go in together. So we would bring in like crazy shits. He brought in a 90-pound halibut one day, stuff like that. So when you make other sauces, what is your other thing outside of clam sauce? What's your favorite sauce to make? Or gravy, whatever the fuck you call it.
Well, I mean, I make gravy, with meatballs and sausage and brajol and all that shit in it. I'll make Alfredo sauce sometimes. I'll make a blush sauce or a vodka sauce. I mean, it really depends on what kind of fucking mood I'm in, dude. Like, I don't really have a favorite anything.
Right.
I think when you're like in the food business, like, I mean, do you really have like a favorite anything? I mean, I'm sure there's certain things you like.
No, it's a very hard question. People go, "What's your favorite?" I always like when people go, "Okay, so they're putting you to death. Okay, you're walking. It's your last meal. What's your last meal?" My last meal. I'm not interested in the fucking meal if they're about to electrocute me in about 5 minutes. I mean, like, I would like a lemon meringue pie. Who the fuck?
yeah.
The question always bothered me. But then I always just say, well, lobster, and then I'd say, well, maybe some pate, and like they're not giving you choices like that. If it's your last meal, it's like bologna or ham.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't think they're gonna have like, can I have some foie gras, please? I mean, a little goose liver before you fucking shock me to death would hit the spot.
Yeah, we'll run out in the field and grab one of those geese on the lawn.
Yeah, I had to make that. I used to have to make that shit in culinary school, and that I worked.
Oh, really?
I worked for a caterer that I used to have to make fucking pate, foie gras, and all that bullshit.
Really? So you did the culinary school? I did. I see. My brother Tommy, my younger brother, was a dean of pastry at the CIA and shit. I never did any formal training. I came up the hard way. Way.
I went to culinary school because, I went to college. I thought it would be useful. Honestly, it was not. I mean, in a way it was, but like I never didn't get a job. Like you know what I mean? Like a lot of the jobs that required that were like jobs I didn't fucking want anyway. You know, like there were like asshole chefs that I really didn't want to fucking work for anyway. You know,
Yeah.
I got a funny story for you. So I'm just getting ready to finish culinary school, and this guy, I used to work at TGI Fridays. So when I was going to culinary school, I was a cook at TGI Fridays. I was a line cook, which I got a million of those fucking things. Oh wait,
You
she
were a
just gave me
lying.
that.
You were a lying cook. You were lying a lot.
A lying, yeah, a line cook. That my GM leaves and he buys this other restaurant slash bar, and he says, I want you to come and help me get this place together because it was kind of like a shithole at the time. And he's like, you know, so my first day, I walk in and there's this old Italian guy who runs the kitchen. And he's this little skinny, greasy, weaselly fucking old Dago, and he's loud and he's yelling at people and he's like, all right, I'm going to show you around. And come on, here, look, this is what you got to do. And so, first off, one of the dishwashers was autistic. And literally, he would every day at 12 o'clock put a plate down and go, Jack, lunch, Jack, cheesesteak, Jack, da da. And this guy, get the fuck out of here. Well, that fucking cheese, I'm fucking busy. The kitchen was disgusting. It looked like it. I said to the guy who owned the place, we got to take this kitchen and run it through a fucking car wash. Like this whole kitchen, every inch of it needs to be fucking cleaned. So I'm there for like 3-4 days, and it was just me and this guy who ran the kitchen at the time. And I'm like cleaning and cleaning and cleaning. So now we're going into the weekend, and the autistic dishwasher didn't work on the weekends. We had a different dishwasher. His name was, oh man, it was like Terrence or something like that. So it's during the day. And you know, when you're prepping, you got like a lot of pots and shit like that. So this fucking guy would literally, Neal, I'm not even joking, bro. The pot sink was a good, at least 5 foot away from where the burners were. He would take like a pot and throw it from the fucking line into the pot sink. Here you go. Fucking clean that. Clean
What,
that.
throwing hot pans, hot pots? They were hot too?
Yeah, he would like boil water, boil pasta, dump it out, and fucking throw it across the kitchen into the pot sink. So I was like, yo, bro, what are you doing? And he was like, fuck this fucking N-word. He's the fucking dishwasher. And he would literally go, here you go, N-word. Wash this fucking pan. Wash this fucking thing. I was
I've seen that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I've been in other kitchen situations where he would have been murdered.
Oh, yeah.
You know, especially nowadays, you get in all these kitchens, even the really high-end kitchens, it's all run by these Puerto Rican guys in New York, and they're all buddies. They don't know what they're doing. You don't want to screw around. They're the powers.
You'll disappear at the end of the night.
Some of the best restaurants there are totally run by them. Anthony Bourdain, if you watch his shows, his right-hand man, who was just a prep cook, ended up becoming the executive chef when Tony left at that famous French place, I'm not being rude here. I'm just trying to send you a few photos that I thought would be funny. I sent you a few photos. One is of me and Helen clamming in the winter. Another one is of a 90-pound halibut that came into the.
I told you I like the big clam.
But puttanesca sauce. If I had to pick a sauce, I really like a really good puttanesca sauce, spicy, hot. Anchovies in it, olives.
Yeah.
That's the one I enjoy making that. Also, I like making spetzi, which is not a gravy or sauce, but spetzi, with the organ meat.
That I'm not the biggest on.
Well, I usually feed it to people and they don't know what it is. I go, here, have some of this. It's like a little chili, and they eat it and they suck the whole bowl down. They go, I love that. I go, okay, you just ate gizzards, hearts, and the gizzards and hearts and
Yeah,
liver.
I was
Chicken.
never big on chitlins.
Yeah. Well, the way the Sicilians did it, they just cook it down into this paste of this spicy
Yes.
hot paste.
Yeah,
You don't know what the fuck you're eating.
I taught my grandfather owned a butcher shop pretty much my whole childhood. And he owned an old school South Philly butcher shop. And he would make all kinds of shit like that. I mean, he literally, when I was a kid, would bring like a fucking half a cow. We had a giant butcher block in our house. And he would bring in like a half a cow and fucking butcher it and cook all this shit. And, and when I was growing up, whatever was on the table, you fucking ate or you didn't eat. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it could have been fucking cow dick and hoof. And if you said no, you got fucking slapped upside the head,
Yeah. I went to a place here yesterday up in the, I'm in the Appalachian Mountains here, Tennessee Appalachian Mountains. And people have been telling me about this place called H&H Meats. I figured, it's got to be this pretty neat place. I went up there. It's basically, it just looks like a barn, and there's a little store inside the barn. And they have their own cattle. They got their own shit, chickens and everything else. And we go in there. And I'm looking around the back as I'm going in the parking lot. And there's guys with deer, like deer, in the back of a truck, just shoveling deer into the back door. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, turns out, anytime you shoot a deer, if you want, you go there.
They butcher it.
They'll butcher the whole thing and package it up for $100, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of it. And when I got inside, it was like, they make everything. It's just like an old butcher shop. It's like an old butcher shop, They said steak, really meaty steak is $6.99 a pound.
Really?
Up for me, and you have to buy 8 pounds of beautiful ribeyes, New York steaks, $6.99 a pound.
Well, I got a place by my house, like that. And if you shoot a deer or a turkey or whatever, you bring it over there, they butcher it, but they also butcher their own stuff and sell it. But they don't have a restaurant.
I didn't think that was even legal up around there. You know what I mean? I didn't. Well, this place is a restaurant. It's just a butcher shop.
Okay.
But I'm going back every week. They make their own friggin' hot dogs, and the ingredients are beef, period. There's
awesome.
I think some spices, but there's no sugar. There's no other shit in there.
Well, my restaurant, the way my restaurant worked, we butchered all our own meat every day.
Really?
And yeah, so you would go to the kitchen and order, and we would have all the different steaks out there. We'd have a whole tenderloin, a whole New York strip, a whole ribeye, and you would say to me, I want a 16-ounce filet mignon, and I would cut it right there. I'd weigh it right in front of you, and I'd give it right to the guy on the grill, and they would cook it and send it out. So everything was fresh every single day, and it was made to order. And the kitchen was so fucking small, we couldn't do it any other way. You couldn't even prepare shit that too much ahead of time because the kitchen literally was like a shoebox, dude.
That's wild. But there's, that's, I think one of the things I miss about New York. There's nothing, I guess if I drove 300 miles to Nashville, I could find a good steakhouse, and they're expensive anyway. But, I just miss Sparks, going to Sparks Steakhouse, which I think is my favorite steakhouse. People say Peter Luger's. I can't go to a steakhouse with fluorescent lights. I can't stand it. I know they have good steaks. I'm not saying they're not good steaks. Something about the atmosphere of that place really gets on my nerves.
I used to go to Morton's a lot because I knew Peter.
Right.
Morton's is okay. Did you ever go to Nobu?
Yeah. Oh, God. I went to the LA. The LA
Nobu
one.
was one of my favorite restaurants. So Richie Notar, who owns Nobu, or at least used to own Nobu, he was good friends with Howard. And I had gotten friendly with him over the years. Dude, he used to come to our fucking stand-up gigs. I'm not even joking, Neil. And he would bring bags of fucking Nobu, bro. We would be like backstage eating like thousands of dollars in fucking Nobu that he would just bring us and be like, here you go, guys. Like the first time I went to Nobu, I went to the one in Vegas at the Hard Rock. And there was like 10 of us. And they gave me the check first. And dude, I'm talking, this is fucking 20 years ago. And the bill was like $25,000. And I was like, holy fucking shit, for dinner? Like, what the fuck did we just eat? 25 grand.
I know. Then you got to do the like, well, John, you owe 1,200. You owe 2,200. Yeah.
Actually, Artie ripped the bill out of my hand and he was like, I got it. I'm paying for it. That was the one, dude. I'll tell you what, that was the one thing with Artie. Artie was so fucking generous. He like, if we went out to dinner and stuff like, he would never even, I would offer to like pay. He would never allow not only like me or anybody, you know. But I'll never forget looking at that bill and being like,
yeah, anybody that knew him, that's the common theme I've heard from most people who knew him is that he's, well, you know better than anybody, but how generous he was. But it's I would go out because, and I talk about it in the book that we wrote, and I talk about it on my shows. I ended up at a certain point because I got into Hollywood, right? Got into Hollywood, things blasted off. All of a sudden there was a strike. And then there was something else, and I came back to New York. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do? And there was this guy who was involved in gambling, you know, calling and, you know, gambling, sports gambling.
Yeah.
I know nothing about sports. I know nothing about baseball or football to a point that it would terrify you to know how little I know, nor do I give a shit about it. But they said, well, you don't have to know anything. You're just going to sit in a room with about 12 guys. You got to answer phones. Write down Z44, want 1,200 on the over. We'll teach you how to do it. You throw the tickets down. This is before the cell phone shit. This is before the cell phones and everything. That's how gambling was. And you had to take the slips at the end of the day, deliver them uptown. The other one goes downtown. You know, FedExing money out to people. Anyway, these fucking guys that I worked with, it's literally, I've had 40 different jobs in my life or more. I've never had so much fun in my whole life. And they were misfits, like college student, you know, somebody who is a school teacher who does this at night. Somebody else is just a mailman, like crazy people coming together at night and on the weekends doing this. These misfits. But the meals, because everyone had cash. We were paid cash. Like you do, session is like 3 hours. So go in a session at night. On the weekend, you do 2 sessions. Sunday, 3 sessions. So we all had thousands of dollars of cash on us. So we go to lunch, and we go over to, usually it was Ruth's Chris when that first started. No, I'm sorry. The Palm, Ruth's Chris. I'm trying to remember. Smith and Lewinsky, all these.
Smith and Lewinsky's, okay.
Sparks at nighttime, and they'd say to me like, you know, this guy Philly Rivers, he'd say, "Get whatever you want." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "What do you want?" I said, "I want lobster." He goes, "What's the biggest fucking lobster you have?" They go, "We got a 6-pound lobster." He goes, "Give him the 6-pound lobster." It was like $70 a pound or something. Like a $500 lobster comes out. I'm sitting there stuffing myself with lobster. and that was just like lunch.
And that was like Tuesday.
Yeah. And then like 3 hours later, you take another break and they go, "Let's go to Mustang Sally's and have some roast beef sandwiches and really expensive booze." It was like, I never had so much fun. But that was like the craziest food in the world. That was the craziest food experience.
Well, didn't you wrote a movie about that, didn't you?
Yeah, that's where I got the whole thing, because one of the guys I worked with, We all had names. They called me Teddy Cop. They come in and they all look at you and they go, stand there. And they go, because they said I look like Ted Koppel because of my fucking hair. So they go, Teddy
Okay.
Cop. You don't have a choice. That's your fucking name. And that's always going to be your name. It's still my name when these guys go, hey, Teddy, you know.
Okay.
So they brand you with the name. But so Phil Rivers, Philly Rivers, his name wasn't Rivers. He's an old Jewish guy. He was a school teacher in Harlem. I didn't know this while I was working because he was a slob. He's the most disgusting, all his cream cheese on his mouth, big fat stomach hanging down. The most unkept, disgusting person. He was very nice. And he's the one who would call the numbers. He'd like look at the thing and call it in. The whole country would adjust numbers based on Philly Rivers. And so basically, and they call him Rivers because his sheet, you know, you got your sheets was the Euphrates, the Hudson River, the Narragansett River. Like all of his players had a name of a river. Anyway, I was working with him for like a year. And one day, he was very emotional one day. And I just said, what's wrong? We've taken a break. And he's tearing up. I'm like, oh shit, something's wrong. And he said, I'm having a problem. And they told me I'm a school teacher in Harlem. I go, what? He goes, I'm a math teacher in Harlem, in the elementary school up in Harlem. I said, are you would not connect this guy with children or anything like that. He goes,
Okay.
yeah, all black school up in Harlem, and I've been doing it for like 30 years, and his principal is going to fire me because of something. He didn't like his method of teaching. Meanwhile, his students all loved him. They come back when they were adults to visit him. They loved him. He was a great teacher.
Really?
And I just went home that day and I said, holy shit. I said, this is a fucking movie. I don't know what it is, but it's a movie. So I wrote it exactly the way it was. It's literally word for word what went on in that office. And then the story is that, which is true, one of his students turned out to be a big, well-known boxer, and came back to him years later when he was growing up, said, you know, you did a lot for me. Somebody wants me to throw a fight. I don't know what to do. He'd like give advice to adults that he taught when he was kids. So I wrote Sid Rivers. That's the one I got in trouble with Joe Pesci and everything like that. That turned into a clusterfuck. My thing that I always like to let people know from the get-go is that they go, well, if you sold movies to Spielberg and you sold movies to Disney and and you've done all this, how come I can't see your movies? And that's what I do. We kind of gave myself a name recently, the reverse life coach. I'm very good at telling people what not to do. That's my claim to fame. I am a very negative person. Paul will tell you. I think I frustrate him quite often.
No, you don't frustrate me. I just think it's hilarious how negative he is. I mean, like if you start watching this, you'll get it. But Neal is the type of person that no matter what the fucking situation is, he will find something wrong. Like you win the Powerball, and I'll be like, I mean, it's great and all. You won $200 million, but now you got to pay taxes and you got to get an account. And oh my God, this isn't good, Paul. This isn't good. Like, you know, you could be in a room filled of Playboy playmates and models who all want to have sex with you. And he'll be like, I don't know. Then they're going to want to talk to you tomorrow, and you might get VD, and like, he'll find something negative.
Yeah. Yes, you're absolutely right. So now I'm putting it to use. What I do is I told this story the other day because I've been trying to come up with something, and I came up with it the other day. My father was a very, very well-known Westchester, New York doctor, Dr. Roy Gumple. And he was a very well-known, smart guy. But let me tell you something. When he got in a fucking boat, he could drive right across and he will ram into a rock in waters where nobody ever hit a rock. He would find a rock. And all the locals, like up in Connecticut, where our summer house was, would go, what happened to knock the whole lower part of the outboard off? What happened? He hit a rock. Where? Outside of Wickety-Quack Cove. How? There's no rock. He would find those fucking rocks. So he actually developed a reputation after, especially at low tide. He developed a reputation where you began to respect it. You'd be like, "So, Dr. Gumple, if I go out of Wickety Quaw Cove and I'm trying to get to Napa Tree, where do I go?" He goes, "Don't go to the left. There's a big rock right there. I took out one of my Boston Whalers on that rock." And he became like a wise sage. He was a horrible boatsman.
So we told you where not to go because of all his mistakes and accidents.
And that's what I am in Hollywood.
So you want to give your wisdom of what not to do by all your mistakes and accidents.
I have named people calling me. I can't give any more details right now at this point, but somebody's actually offering me a teaching position in a really serious establishment. That's all I could say, because they think I have something. And the only thing I would need to do is sit in front of all these college students and tell them about every fucking thing I did wrong and what not to do. And they could tell me what they're doing. I'll say, that's not going to work. I'll tell them why. You know what I mean?
Well, they don't even need, textbooks. If you're their professor, all they need is a prescription for Prozac and
anti-anxiety medication.
Yeah, because when they're done with your class, they're going to want to probably commit fucking suicide. So they're going to need something to
Yeah, but see, sure. you're not seeing the light through the forest. The light through the forest. The light. The light that you need to grasp is this. And I have a young man who's one of my students or whatever you call it. He's only 15. By the way, you've heard about him. Yeah. They just sent me the footage. They sent me the footage the other day of this movie.
How's it look?
Oh, you fucking.
Okay, so Neal's got a TikTok that if anyone out there who hasn't seen it should go on. Neal does a lot of videos about things that have happened to him in Hollywood, celebrities that he's worked with, celebrity stories, and he had a 15-year-old kid who hit him up for advice. And even though we're joking about this, Neal coached him and has been coaching him, and the kid started shooting his own movie recently, and that's what Neal's talking about with the footage.
Yeah, well, the whole thing was my job is I don't know anything about producing movies, but I know how to write a screenplay. So I helped this kid, and somehow he said, "You made me write a screenplay. You said just do it," and he did it. So he contacted us. I thought he was like 45. Then I found out, I have to go to bed. My mother's mad at me. I'm like, what the fuck? So I have to do my homework. Meanwhile, I'm cussing my brains out, talking to him. You got a fucking script. I'm finding this his mother's like, hold it down. So the point is, he thanked me for this script. And then he came on my show as a guest one night and said, well, we start shooting in a month. I go, shooting what? He's like, my movie. I said, I thought the screenplay. He goes, yeah, but now I got to shoot the movie. I'm like, what? He goes, I'm shooting the movie. I set my budget. He told me what kind of lens he's buying for the camera and the lighting pack and how he's casting. I'm like, Jesus, I just want to help you write a script. He goes, no, I'm making a movie because you showed me how to do the whole. And he sent me footage because they've been shooting in Pennsylvania. And he's in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, they're shooting. And they just did a big shoot for a couple of days up there in the snow, like 3 feet of snow. And he sent it to me. I swear to God, it looks like a Tarantino movie. He stars in it too, with a bunch of makeup. He's got a wig and a big mustache. I swear to God, I couldn't believe the quality.
Okay, but is it good? Or I mean, the quality clearly is good, but is the movie good?
What I've seen so far is the dialogue is so real. I actually, one of the criticisms I had when he first sent me the script, he said, could you read it? I said, sure. I said, there's a little too much swearing in there. I said, swearing is good. It's like a spice. You don't have to know how to use it, whatever. He goes, fuck that. That's the way people talk in my neighborhood. I'm like, okay. He says, that's the way, terms we were not supposed to use. It's all over. He says that's the way it's going to be. And so the thing is that he's done this. He's shooting this film. It's looking good, and I'm saying to myself, "Holy crap!" And then Vinny from South Philly, he's shooting something. It's a bigger budget, but 25K or whatever. He's shooting something.
Well, I got a friend of mine years ago. He was not as young as that kid, but he was like early 20s. He actually worked on the Kid Chris show that was on WISP in Philadelphia. He was like an intern, and they used to call him Rock Hard Killer. And he always wanted to be a filmmaker. And he made a movie, him and his friends, and it was okay. And then he got a little bit of money and he made another movie, and it was all right. Dude, this kid now has been making I don't know if you saw a few years ago the documentary about Bill Murray. He did that it was a movie about all about Bill Murray documentary. He did it. He's been doing all these like major films now. And he started out a lot like that kid. And I told you about the other friend of mine who he raised some money, he bought some equipment, he shot, and the quality of this movie looks like it should be on fucking Netflix, like Universal did it, and him and a couple of his buddies shot the movie.
Yeah, this kid is spooky because even in the script, like I said, well, I found something wrong with the script, and Helen and Andrea read the script, and they came back with something, and everybody had a point. And one of the things was like the guy who's such a scumbag lawyer. He's a scumbag lawyer. It's sort of like Breaking Bad. He's a scumbag lawyer, the Saul series. It's sort of like that, mixed with Tarantino. And I said in the end, they said, you don't like this guy in the beginning, and you don't like him at the end. I said, that's a problem. What's the arc?
Yeah.
Because what's an arc? I tell him what it was. He goes, okay, I'll call you back. Like 2 days later, he calls me back, read it again, and he perfectly fixes it. He perfectly fixes it. He knew. He understood what the fuck I was saying, and he fixed it. And so...
so you're saying basically he's a better screenwriter than me?
Yeah, probably.
It's good to know.
You're a good...
It's good to know that a 15-year-old that just started is head and shoulders above what I'm writing.
Listen, when I first started writing screenplays, I mean, I fell into it accidentally. And I used to have a habit of putting exclamation points behind everything somebody said. And also I'm thrown in a room with like Arthur Penn, the famous director, or Gary Marshall or something. And they're like, why do you have so many fucking exclamation points? Like a school teacher, they like scold me. I was going to cry. And they say, you're saying things, but then you just keep saying it. Why are you spending so much time saying things? Like you make your point. Boom, you hit it. You hit the point. You made the joke. Move on. But you repeat, So that's the only thing you have an issue with, but that's just lack of experience.
Well, I think it's because I'm more of like a story writer than a script writer. Like I'm used to like writing differently, and script writing is an art, and I kind of had the same thing when I first started stand-up. Like I fell into stand-up. I never wanted to do stand-up. I wanted to be a writer. I thought I was getting into a writer's contest, and the next thing I knew, it was a stand-up contest, and I did it. And I got wrapped up with a lot of the guys from the Howard Stern show. And I used to do all these gigs with Reverend Bob Levy, who he's been doing stand-up forever. And he was on the Stern show a lot at the time. And I would like on the way home from like doing shows with him, he would berate me. And I don't care if we were driving from fucking California to New Jersey. He would be drunk off his ass and he would be like, oh my God, that joke you did was horrible. Why would you do that? Why would you say that? So he like beat it into me so much that I started like really learning how to like hone it in a little bit better. Like I guess like you, like where to trim the fat and where to hit punchlines and things like that. But I got it beat into my head.
Yeah, there were things like that. The one thing, I'm not boasting, but it's just good information. The one thing I had an uncanny knack of doing, which all the producers and people who worked with me said, "Well, where did you study your screenwriting? Your structure's really amazing." I'd be like, "I don't know what the fuck you're talking about." They're like, "Well, the first act, the second act, the third act." I'm like, "I didn't know what they're talking about." What do you mean the first act? Well, say at page 27, 28, 29, that's when you end your first act. At page 78, 79, that's what the second act. There's a formula to this. Sid Field wrote the book, on structure, the whole thing. And then between the structure, the three acts, you have these tent poles where things happen. Jerry Maguire's the perfect structure. There's certain movies with perfect structure. I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. They said, "Well, you obviously studied somewhere." Because at page 28, he kisses her for the first time. At page 78, he says no and shuts the door. And in the third act, I'm like, okay. And then Brian Lindsay became my manager, and he sat me down one day, says, "You're on the mark for structure, like to a point that screenwriters who studied can't hit it that perfect." And I'm like, I had no idea what he's talking about. And he looked at me and goes, "You really don't know what the hell you're doing, do you?" I said, "No." But I always said, eventually, I didn't know what I was talking about then. Now I tell people, it's like a comedian or somebody telling a good joke. Forget comedians. Somebody telling a good joke. Well, the hunchback goes to the priest and he says to the priest, "I'd like to ring the bell." You know what I mean? And then he rings the bell. And then, when somebody knows how to tell a really good joke, they start it off, you got the body of the joke and the conclusion. It's like they hit it right at the certain points. Screenplays are that way. There is a proven formula to screenplays. Something happens, you find out what's going on in the first 20 minutes of the movie. Then you go into the body of the story, the challenge, the confusion, whatever the conflict is, even if it's a comedy, the conflict. And at the end of the second act, you only got 25 pages to turn it around. And every story on film has this structure to it. And it's mathematically provable. And when I used to teach people in classes and stuff, I would have Jerry Maguire. It's not my favorite movie, but the structure is unbelievable. You watch it, I'll tell you, 28 minutes in, what happens? 70-something minutes in, what happens? And it's the most perfectly structured. That's one of several movies that they use pretty much for structure, We'd sit there with a stopwatch, the whole class, watch the movie, all of a sudden, he kisses her, like this happens.
Yeah, see, like me, and you had, Neal had referred me to the Michael Clayton script, which I read and kind of taught me a little bit more structure. But like especially before, when I would write scripts, my head's just going and the story is really being created as I'm going. Like I got the idea of like, oh, cool. Okay, I'm going to write a movie about, a guy and a girl and they meet and they want to get married and and, as I'm writing it, the story is kind of creating. It's the same thing with music. Okay, a lot of musicians, big name musicians, they may say, like a guitar player, they may create a couple chords, and then as they play, it's kind of wherever it takes them. And that's kind of how I write sometimes. Like I let it kind of take me where it's going to take me, where my imagination like goes. So honestly, what you're even telling me right now, I never even knew. Like I never knew at like page 27, 28 should be like the end of the first act, and fucking 77, 75 should be the other. Like I don't think like that. It's
Yeah.
probably why a lot of my scripts end up to be 200 fucking pages when they're supposed to be 120.
Yeah, well, you're a good writer, but it's funny because, like, I'll say sometimes, I gotta call Paul. I'll be ready in a few minutes. Ellen's like, she'll just go to bed because we'll get on the phone. We'll get on the phone, and I'll say, "So what's going on? I'm gonna go to the gym. So just tell me what's going on." Say, "Well, years ago I knew this guy, and it just." It's an endearing quality about you, but you could fucking talk for 3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And when I'm done, I'm like, we didn't really get anywhere.
No, we didn't.
laugh
What
our
we
ass
got on the phone for, I mean, literally the other night, he calls me to talk. So me and Neil were like in the middle of a couple different like business things with, a couple scripts and stuff like that. So literally calls me and goes, okay, so I had a meeting set up with kind of like a producer. I can't really say their name and stuff right now because I'm under an NDA. So calls me, hey, what happened? So literally we talk about it for like 3 minutes, maybe, right? 3 minutes we talked about it. And then the next thing I know, we're telling stories about shit that we used to do. And we're dying laughing because I'm telling him stories about, me on the road and girls I messed with. And he's telling me stories about shit that he did. And the next thing I know, I look at the clock and it's fucking 2 hours later. And I'm like, we accomplished nothing. Like we laughed for 2 hours, but we didn't. And now it's 3:00 in the morning, and we're both like, we got to go to fucking bed. Like,
yeah, it's funny because with a screenplay, you got to think about like you take a book, like a 350, 400 page book, and they say, well, adapt this fucking book into a screenplay, and I'll be like, okay, and other people are like, well, how do you do that? How do you take this story and put it into a screenplay of 120 pages? And that's a weird, I think you could learn it, but it's sort of like you got to have it or not have it. It's sort of, you have to, because most of a movie is visual. The dialogue isn't the thing that drives, it's the visual. It's time lapse, go to here, there, move. But the structure, that's why you have to hit that first act within that many pages. Because if your first act goes to page 40, you're fucked. You're fucked. You're gonna be like,
honestly, I could care less about writing dialogue. I mean, because I've been in movies, and really,
your dialogue's fine. Yeah, your dialogue's fine.
But a lot of the funniest shit that you get is off the cuff anyway. The dialogue is almost like an outline, and if you have really good actors, they're going to act it out more, and you may get funnier shit than you could even write. Yeah. I visualize the movie in my mind. What I have a hard time doing is taking what I'm visualizing in my mind and putting it on paper in that structure properly. Now, this is something you touched on, the book thing. So there's an author out there who I'm working with right now. Her name's Whitney Deneen. And she actually, as a matter of fact, I got the fucking book right here. This is a book that she wants me and Neal to adapt to a script. And she actually today just came out with a new book. I didn't realize this until a few days ago. That she's written about 40 books, Neal.
I didn't know it was 40. I thought it was like 10 of them or something. I didn't know.
No, she's written like 40 books. She told me she writes about 4 books a year minimum.
Right.
That's pretty much her average. She wakes up every day like 4:30 in the morning, starts writing, gets the kids to school, writes all fucking day, gets them from school, goes back at night, writes some more, but she's actually a really good writer, and she's a best-selling author. She's a USA Today best-selling author. She's a fucking best-selling author.
It's like a Nicholas Sparks. That's what Nicholas Sparks, Message in a Bottle, all those fucking movies. He writes the books, all these books.
Okay.
Like 1 or 2 a year. Now, the thing that's interesting, which I think is related to what we're saying, Nicholas Sparks is one of the few novelists who can write Message in a Bottle. By the way, I hate those fucking movies. Message in a Bottle, right? And then turn around and write the screenplay. And the screenplay is just as good or better than the book and becomes a #1 movie. There's a different part of the brain, some of us theorize, that is the visual part of the brain. There's a technical, verbal. So most people who write a book, they can't write the movie. Their brain can't do that. That's not their gift. Nicholas Sparks does both. He writes his own screenplays, his own movies, his books. You just look a list of the shit he's written.
Well, that doesn't make sense to me because I've written books. I mean, I
can see where you could write books. I can see where you're.
I wrote this fucking book. I've written novels, and like that's why when Whitney came to me and said, "I can't write a screenplay. I don't know how to do it." I was like, "But you're a writer. How do you not know how to write a fucking?"
It's a whole different thing, man. No, you listen. So few novelists can write the screenplay. It's not because of lack of. I think it takes more talent to write a novel, but screenwriters, the people who are really good screenwriters who have a natural talent for it, they have the ability to come. It's like a reduction, like when you're cooking, reducing things down, reducing it down, and coming up with something better than what was the mass, reduced to something intense, the same thing. That's sort of what a screenwriter does. They can take it and turn it into that,
Yeah.
And it's weird. You have to chop out stuff. People. So I've adapted 1 or 2 books, and they say, "Well, you left out this part." Well, of course I left out that fucking part. It's a 450-page book, so I couldn't tell that particular scene.
Yeah.
With the ant in the bathroom, I couldn't tell that one, but the body of it is, So it's
this is a funny thing about Neal that he is been in Hollywood for years. He's a screenwriter. Neal, do you have a TV?
No, I haven't had a television in, I don't know, 30-something years.
He don't even watch fucking TV. What was the last movie you watched, Neal?
In a theater? Like in a theater?
Yeah.
The last theater I was at was maybe 20 years ago. It was in L.A., and I would only go because I had to go because, like, the Directors Guild was showing, like,
fucking guy.
I think it was The Others. The Others with Nicole Kidman.
Okay.
I went with AJ Benza, me, Nicole Kidman, and Harvey Weinstein went to see the movie that they just did with her starring in it. That's like the last movie I went to.
Anybody get raped that night?
Let's think.
Or willingly got raped?
Fondled, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that's how Nicole got in all those movies.
Well, Nicole had just left Tom.
Okay.
And people didn't think she was even a show. It was right about that time. And so we went out afterwards to the Sky Bar, the restaurant in the Sky Bar. And Harvey said, I wasn't close with Harvey, but he knew who I was because he was friendly with AJ. And so he just said to me, well, you could join me for lunch. Or it was like a late lunch dinner thing. And he says, Nicole's going to join us. I'm like, who the fuck's Nicole? I just watched the movie with Nicole in it. So we sit down and see Nicole Kidman comes over and sits. And at the time, this is before she started screwing around with her plastic surgery and shit. That's one good looking woman.
I was just going to ask you, how'd she look in person?
This is before the surgery. She was stunning. But more than that, she says, hi, how are you? Start talking. And I'm like, and I knew she just left Tom Cruise. I wanted to ask her all kinds of shit, but
Yeah.
And she said something about the kids. And I said, I have 3 daughters. Really? Where are they? And we started to, and she wasn't just being friendly for the fucking sake of it. She could tell she wanted to talk about her kids. So she's telling me about her kids. I'm talking about her kids. We should get together sometime and fly them into wherever like we're talking about this. It was just totally charming, totally fun, awesome. Totally very nice. But it was The Others with Fionnuala Flanagan, who I knew already, the actress.
I'll tell you, it's so the funny thing about like when I worked up at Stern, I used to meet these celebrities all the time. You
Hmm.
know, like, and a lot of them were like accidental. I'd be like in a fucking elevator with someone. Like I remember one of the first times I went to Sirius Satellite. I'm going up the elevator, and this really tall dude standing next to me, and I like glanced over at him, and then I glance over again, and I see on his name tag it says Eric Clapton, and I like did a double take, and I was like, oh shit, you're like the real fucking Eric Clapton, and he was like, yep, I'm performing in the studio today, and I'm like, holy shit, like I didn't even realize it. I remember meeting some women who, celebrity women, who people thought were the most gorgeous women in the world. They were like the biggest sex symbols, and in person they were fucking dogs. They were not that good looking.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember, you know, Stern started early. So I would see a lot of these women 6 o'clock in the morning. They would like come in to Stern. They'd be all disheveled, not doing their makeup. And then they would go in like the green room with, you know, their makeup artist and stuff like that and do their makeup. One who I used to go to this Thanksgiving Eve party with Artie a lot. And it was one of the actors from damn it, I can't think of Will and Grace. And she used to throw this party in New York City, and all these big name actors would be there. And the first time I met Heather Graham, I was like floored at how gorgeous she was in person. Like she actually looked better in person than she looked on stage. And dude, I'm 5'7". She was like my height. Like that was the other thing that always threw me off when I would meet a lot of stars. Like some of them you wouldn't think were like that tall, and some of them you wouldn't think. Like I met Bruce Willis, and dude, Bruce Willis is probably shorter than me.
Oh, really?
You know?
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. Like I like some of the people that I would meet. Jimmy Fallon's really tall.
Really?
Yeah, Jimmy Fallon's pretty tall.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah, like so like so like your perception, it always like made me laugh. Like when you see these people on TV, your perception of them from watching them on TV a lot of time is like way off of what they really are. Like I like Britney Spears. I met Britney Spears a handful of times. The Jessica Simpson and Ashley Simpson. Dude, like Ashley Simpson, honestly, like I thought she was way hotter than Jessica. Like in person, like she was a lot better looking than Jessica. But Jessica was the sex symbol and got all the fame. You know, like it always boggled my mind.
Well, it's funny because there's 5 stories I could tell you right off, which are kind of interesting. One is that without naming names, there was an attorney my wife and I met when we were in Beverly Hills. When we first got to LA, we were put up in Beverly Hills. We were like hanging with the A-list. And this attorney took a liking to me and my writing and wanted to talk to me about helping him with something. And he was dating here we go. I'm terrible with names. What's her name?
What was his name?
I can't tell you his name. Not when you hear the story.
Yeah, I got it.
She was in the movie with Billy Bob Thornton where they have the crazy sex, the black girl.
Oh, Halle Berry?
Halle Berry. This guy was with Halle Berry. They were like in an established relationship. Well, he took one look at my wife, and my wife was a very well-known Ford model and Asian, good-looking woman. He just went crazy. We went to lunch. We hung out a bit, and like within a couple of days, we're trying to talk about this movie he wants me to write, and he was distracted. And he finally said to me, he goes, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I want to ask you something. He says, don't take this the wrong way. Could I have your wife? I said, what? He goes, could I have your wife?
Can I have your wife?
And I'm like, well, yeah. He's like, and you could have Halle Berry. I said, what do you mean I could have Halle Berry? Because I talked to her. She thinks you're cute, you know. I said, no. She goes, I'm sorry to offend you. I hope I'm not offending you. I said, no, I think she looks like a centipede. I mean, Halle Berry to me was not an attractive woman in person. When you see them in person, to your point, yeah, she's this strange face. She looks like a fucking alien.
Because I'll tell you what, on camera, she looked awesome.
I know.
And I met a girl out in Chicago on the road who looked like her and had a body like her, and she was a fun time at the hotel, and I could not resist to not.
We sound like a bunch of male chauvinists. And it's funny, Helen has said to me when I've told that story, I don't tell that story often, but she said, so if she was like a Heather Graham or so, you might have like gone for it. I said, yeah, maybe, possibly.
Hey, man, I get it.
I would say the most.
They're like, could you have my wife? Like, what are we talking about for like a pint of pork fried rice? Or
he wanted to marry her. He wanted me to divorce and marry him. So it's like, I've been through that with her because it's like, it's what happens when you. So it's, I went to like Nicole, like I said, gorgeous woman, opening of a magazine, first edition. It was either Detour or Details. I know it's out there. I got to find it. It's the opening of the magazine in West Hollywood. And this one woman who was a producer said, I really want you to talk to, this is another one. Here we go.
This is Selma Hayek.
Yes. Did I tell you that story?
Yeah, I remember you telling me.
Yeah. She sits me over with Selma Hayek alone. And she goes, hi. And I couldn't even talk. That woman was so beautiful.
Well, I told you when I was just out in LA, I went to the one guy's house.
That's right. That's right. I'm sorry.
That's why you told me that story. She was sitting in his fucking living room, and I was like, holy shit. She is still fucking phenomenal. And I'm talking like she literally was in like plain clothes pajamas. Yeah. And like not dressed up at all. It was like late at night. She was just like hanging out in this guy who I know's fucking living room. And I was like floored. You're right. She's stunning.
Yeah. Well, imagine that 18 years ago or 17 years ago.
And
she was incredible to talk to. We were talking for a long time, very specifically about this arrangement for this writing thing she wanted to do. And somebody snapped a picture of us, and it came out in the magazine, the next second edition, like, who's this mystery man with Selma? Because I had my arm sort of, it looked like we were intimate.
I got you.
So that we don't sound like a bunch of chauvinist pigs. Okay, so the men, okay, Mel Gibson. First time I just get to Hollywood, Jim Sheridan says, we're going to go meet some people to get somebody to help us make your movie. And we go to Mel Gibson's place. We're meeting with Karen Glasser was the president of Mel's company over at Warner Brothers. So we go walking in, and we're walking down to see Karen Glasser. And like, I wasn't a starstruck type of person. We're going, and Jim is there with me and George Gallo walking there. All of a sudden, walk past an office, and Mel's sitting there. He goes, hey, how you doing, guys? And he goes, come in for a minute. He said, well, we have a meeting with Karen. He goes, come in. We go in. He stands up. He's very short. He was like strikingly short. And he's a good-looking guy. But he looked kind of funny. Kind of like funny-looking short. It was just very strange. Because I just saw Braveheart, where he looks like this massive fucking,
And now you're looking at an elf. And you're like, what the fuck? Like,
listen, I know I'm not even in the league of these people. But then, then you meet other people, other men. So I'm just being fair because I want to see we're just measuring women up and down all the time. Then you meet other guys out there like Vince Vaughn, big, tall, big friggin' guy. Vince Vaughn, funny guy. Jim Caviezel is a guy who was like, he looked at me. I said, I did a video on this. I met Jim Caviezel one day. He was coming out in of a breakfast place, and I was going out, and he was with his agent or manager. And I kind of looked at him. He kind of looked at me, and it was like, and he's like, "Hello, how are you?" I said, "Good. How are you today?" "Good. Very nice. My name's Neal Gumple. I'm a writer." Very quick, and we go separate ways. I went home, and I swear to God, this is long before the Jesus movie thing. I said, he looks like Jesus. I said, if Jesus came down, if he if he came down tomorrow again, the second coming, he'd look like Jim Caviezel.
You typecasted him.
Yeah, that's what it was. He just. Oh, I know what I said. I just saw the movie Frequency, and I was like, "Oh," I said, "Frequency." I just saw you. Yeah, well, thank you very much. He's just so sweet and gentle. And I remember saying to Helen and saying to other people, I go, he may even be Jesus for all I know. Maybe he's Jesus. Jesus came back as an actor. So there's that kind of stuff. But then you meet other people, and they're almost all actors are shorter than in real life. I met Scarlett Johansson.
It is kind of stunning, like that. And and I don't want to just talk about the women either, but like, people watch the entertainment industry in Hollywood, and they have all these preconceived notions of certain people, and when you meet them, a lot of them are like just regular people like us, and they're really nice, and
We're not regular people.
Well, and some of them are assholes. Like, I have met people who I was like shocked that they were an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, I think I told you the story about the first time I met Trump. Did I tell you that story?
No.
So Howard K-Rock was in Trump Tower in New York City.
Okay.
And old Donnie Boy used to come down to fucking the studio once in a while and say hi to Howard, and him and Howard were friends, and he used to call in the show sometimes. And I wrote this bit, and it was like in the beginning of me first going up there, and Howard does the bit on the air, and it went like really, really well. And Trump, during the bit, called in and got involved in the bit. So we're leaving, and Howard was very germphobic.
Right.
So he didn't shake people's hands and stuff like that. So I had like just started getting into like working up there a little more, and like writing some things, and I was being involved and helping out with the show. And Howard comes walking over to me and shakes my hand, which like everyone was like, like, and I'm like, okay, whatever. He fucking shook my hand, and he was thanking me. And Donald Trump comes off the elevator and walks over, and he goes, "Come on, Howard, I got to talk to you." And Howard goes, "Oh, well, hold on. I want to introduce you to Paul." And he looks at me up and down, and he goes, "I don't give a fuck." He goes, "Come on, Howard." And Howard goes, what? "Donald, hold on a second." He goes, "The bit that you got involved in today, he wrote it. And I wanted to talk to him for a second." He goes, "I don't give a fuck." He goes, "Who the fuck is he? Come on, Howard." And he like ripped him away from me. Yeah. And I remember being like, damn, that was kind of fucked up, because like, what if I like idolized Donald Trump? Like, and you couldn't take a second? I mean, I was like 24 maybe at the time. Like, you could tell I'm a young kid. Like, you couldn't at least say like, "Hey, good job. The bit was funny," or, the "good luck. I got to talk to Howard really quick. Could you excuse me?" No, it was, "I don't give a fuck," and ripped him away. I actually had a couple encounters with him during my time, up there, where I watched him not be the nicest person, and I was involved with him not being the nicest person. Now, I never put too much stake into it, because like, honestly, when he ran for president the first time, I didn't vote for him, because I was like, he's a fucking jerk off.
Right.
But,
I remember that.
yeah, but like, but my point to that is that like, you meet people, and sometimes like you think they're the coolest people in the world, and they wind up being an asshole. And then you meet some other people that you think they're fucking idiots, or and they're not. So a lot, like, the point of all of this is that what you see on TV a lot of times may not be what it really is in person. Like Paris Hilton, the first couple times I met her, I mean, I got to be honest, dude. I was floored to how gorgeous she was. Like she actually, when she was doing that TV show with Nicole Richie, she stayed at a buddy of mine's house down here in South Jersey for a week, and they did a whole episode. And I spent a couple nights with her, and in person, dude. First off, let me tell you, cool as shit.
Right.
Super cool. Like hung out with her all night long, laughed, very down to earth. Like you would never expect how down to earth she is. Like a lot of what you say is a complete fucking act. Like she was doing the baby voice shit to me. And I said to her, like, you know, you don't got to do that baby voice, because a couple times she slipped and her voice is actually kind of deep.
Yeah, she's a very strong businesswoman. Yeah.
Oh, she's fucking smart, but she's got like a deeper voice, and she was doing that baby fucking thing. And I was like, it's just us. You don't got to keep that going. And she was like, well, that's what a lot of people want to say. And I'm like, actually, it's fucking annoying. I'm like, I'd rather you just be yourself.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned her, because I came to my mind before, because I'd seen her often, met her a few times, and I always said to myself, this girl's, they made fun of her being mousy. I'm like, she's a beautiful girl. But I was at Chateau Marmont one day, and we're sitting outside, and I look over, and I forgot who I was with. It was somebody more important than me, because this woman kept looking over. She had black hair, and she was looking over at us. I was with a couple agents from ICM. That's what it was. We're sitting out there, and she kept looking over and smiling. I'm like, this woman's not fucking looking at me. She's looking over. And then one of the agents with me, like, waves to her. She goes, how are you, like this? I'm like, who the fuck? I was stunned. Like, I said, who is that? That's Nikki Hilton. I said,
Nikki's gorgeous too, dude.
Let me tell you something, because I had just seen her.
Nikki is gorgeous.
She was a beautiful, her eyes, just beautiful woman. Then,
actually, she might even be prettier than Paris.
I was going to say, she's in a whole nother realm, because I've seen them both about the same time at different times. And she, when they were leaving, she came over to the table where we were. And she came over. He said, gentlemen, this is Nikki. And then we stood up. Hello, how are you? And the way she talked was so graceful and just a strong, like, intelligent. I'm like, God damn, nothing you hear or nothing you think is real is going on. I was very good friends with Soleil Moonfry. And I talk about the story about meeting Scarlett Johansson at Chateau Marmont. Me and John Lovitz were there talking to Scarlett Johansson about doing the movie with Bill Murray over there. And
I always heard that she was really cool and down to earth.
Well, yeah, you didn't know who she was. She looked like she had no makeup on. Her hair was pulled back. She just had her sweatshirt on, came over and started talking to us. I'm like, she looked like a mousy little thing. Like,
I actually was told that she's not that good looking.
No,
like, she's not bad looking, but she's not as
she's
gorgeous as they make her.
Not at all. But remember something too, is that my Helen was she was the first Asian model to be used in the United States for national ads and stuff. So she was the first high-paid Asian runway model. She worked Calvin Klein around the world, everything. And so when I first met her, she was well into her career. So I'd go on go-sees with her, auditions with her sometimes, or she'd take me somewhere where there were a bunch of these models hanging out, or they're being scrubbed down, ready for a show or something. And you go see Cindy Crawford, all these people, no makeup on, the hair tied back, they're all scrubbed, ready for makeup. And none of them, other than maybe Kelly LeBrock, none of them were stunning. But the minute there's something about those faces, the second they start to touch them up, boom, it explodes. It's like a chemical reaction. And there's people who know how to spot that kind of look. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, like I was saying Britney Spears earlier. I mean, dude, 6 o'clock in the morning with her, like, and I've been saying this ever since I met her 20 years ago. Like, she is not that good looking.
Right.
Like, I've seen her with no makeup and shit. I've seen a lot of these, actors and actresses when they're not all done up, and you're like, whoa, holy shit. Like, you look like, and then you realize, like, lighting and makeup. And like, I started telling my kids from when they were little, like, don't get obsessed with like actresses and models and the way they look, because a lot of it is fucking fake. Like, I knew a lot of like the model girls, even the Playmates and like all of them from Big and on Stern, and you would meet them, 6 o'clock in the morning, and you'd be like, holy shit, like, you fucking don't look nothing like, what you do on camera, but I guess you're right. I guess when you have like really good features and stuff like that, like you could do a lot with makeup.
Yeah, there's something about the structure of the face structure, the whatever, and people can spot it. They do have the one thing in common. Back in those days, that's like the 80s with the big models. They were tall. They're always tall. Models are always tall. They were tall, shoulders tall, things like that. But the guys are just, I don't know. It's like, I was never, I think I was starstruck twice. And once was Gregory Peck when I first met him. He was tall. His voice was like, hello, Neal. Big head, handsome guy. You don't think
well, that was because you told me he had such a big unit too, that it was it took you back. You couldn't believe how big he
went to shake my hand. I felt like it was a tennis racket. And I said, oh my God, if the hands match the huge guy, big guy, so gentle. I was starting
like, I feel bad for his wife. She probably can't walk for a week after that.
I think I met his wife too. It's funny too. But him and Danny DeVito, the only time I was starstruck, but it's like, it's very funny. It's why they call it Tinseltown. That's why it is the way it is. And
hey, before we run out of time, all right, I'm going to play another one for you. Now, this is just a scene.
What's the name of this game? Irritate the fuck out of me.
I'm going to play a scene from a couple like well-known movies that I'd actually be shocked if you never saw their stuff, but I'm going to see what you think of the scene.
I'm also going to need that extended warranty on it for the price of on the house.
That I can't do.
Now don't be a Negro, be my nigga. All right, help me out.
Hold on. I ain't nobody's nigga.
Well, I mean, you somebody's nigga wearing this nigga tie.
Now you're being condescending. See, you've been warned, all right? Let's move forward amicably.
Okay, well, check this out. First of all, you're throwing too many big words at me. Okay, now, because I don't understand them, I'm going to take them as disrespect. Watch your mouth and help me with the sale.
Okay, see? See, now you found yourself a nigga. You was looking for a nigga? Nigga here now, see?
Okay.
Today's forecast, dark and cloudy, and chance of drive-by.
You want to go?
Yo, I suggest you move back.
Then Nick, fire off.
Uh-oh. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do, Mr. Floor Manager? Go get him, Tiger.
This shit just got rigged.
What you gonna do, bitch?
I'm gonna tell you what. I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do. You know Luke and Perry from 20th and 25th?
You ever heard of Rolling 20s, nigga? Since I was 16, nigga. You know what I'm saying? Frosty. You know what I'm saying? Spoon. Nigga, we fuck dwarves in the ass.
Nigga, this dwarf here don't gotta be taller. Pull a trigger off of somebody's face.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Back up. What's up?
Hey,
what?
Well, welcome to Smart Tech.
Hey, is this your boy?
Yeah, nigga, we will both mash you. What?
Hey,
what?
How can we
Where you
help
at?
you, sir?
No, he don't need no help. He's already been served. I served him. He's taken care of. He's a little slow, but he got it. See, what he thought was he could come up in here and make the rules, but now he see that Jay make the rules in Smart Tech, that I run this bitch, and now he about to bounce.
This your boy?
Yeah, that's my boy, nigga. We rep the same Smart Tech.
You just got fucked up with him. Both y'all niggas gonna get clapped up when I get back. Both of y'all niggas.
What did I do?
It don't fucking matter. Yeah, well, aim high, Willis. Aim high.
Please don't do this.
So that's from 40-Year-Old Virgin. Did you ever see that movie?
No.
Okay, so that was the first movie that Kevin Hart ever did,
Oh,
and
really?
and one of the first movies that Steve Carell ever did.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because he was in The Office. I know he's in The Office.
Yes. Yeah. So that was like a famous scene from that movie.
And it's a comedy, right? So
yes, it's a
what's the
comedy.
whole? They can't do that movie nowadays, right? They wouldn't be able to do that nowadays.
Well, you know what movie you could do nowadays, which would go over really, really well. At least I think is I'm going to and I pulled this clip purposely because I think this is the type of movie that we should be doing nowadays.
Yeah.
The way you lollygagging around here with them picks and them shovels, you think it was 120 degrees. Can't be more than 114. When you was slaves, you sang like birds. Come on, how about a good old nigger work song?
I get no kick from champagne.
Hold it, what the hell is that shit?
What in the wide world of sports is going on here? I had you people try to get a little track lead, not to jump around like a bunch of Kansas City faggots. Listen, dummy, the surveyors say they may have run into some quicksand up ahead. Better check it out.
Okay, I'll send down a team of horses to check out the ground.
Horses? Why, we can't afford to lose no horses, you dummy. Send over a couple of niggers.
Could you imagine if that? Well, here's the thing, though, too. Not a lot of people realize that Richard Pryor was one of the main writers of Blazing Saddles.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, Blazing Saddles is so racist." Fucking Richard Pryor wrote it. You know, like I think that's why it's still out and they didn't ban it because they really can't. But could you imagine trying to do a fucking movie like Blazing Saddles today?
I don't know, because we talked about this stuff. And I talked about it in somebody's interview the other day. I grew up in a suburb of New York City, which was 1/3 of the town was black, 1/3 was Latino, 1/3 were white kids. And I swear to God, there wasn't 1 hour where you weren't busting each other's balls. We used every word there was. We would refer to so-and-so the guinea, so-and-so the kraut, so-and-so the Jew. So it was non-stop.
Yeah.
And we got along just fucking fine. Everybody got along fine. And then, if you want to go crazy and look up, Google me, I got into religion at a young age. And I became a minister in a church. And most of my congregation were black. And if you want to see fun and ball busting, the guy who married me was black. My best man was black. I was this white ass kid with my white ass wife, and suddenly we're in a black church, mostly black church, and it was like some of the best years of my life because I had so much fun, and we said everything to each other. It was just
absolutely,
and it really bothers me to see what writers go through nowadays and all the bullshit that divides us. And there's higher powers are dividing us. These higher powers are dividing us.
It divides us more now. Like I can give two fucks what your race is, what your religion is, what your sex is, what your sexual preference is. I don't give a fuck. I treat everybody the same. Yeah. And like that's how we always were. Like we said, things, but we never were like mean or malicious about it. Like we might ball bust, but we never like crossed that line. And I understand there's a line you cross, but all this being so sensitive and with this cancel shit is actually making more of a divide than there's ever been.
Oh yeah, it's totally horrible. I mean, even like not just racist stuff and homophobic stuff. but we used to talk about each other's mothers like viciously. Like,
dude, I lived in the fucking East Village. I have my uncles were they were gay, and one of my best friends is like I can't even tell you how many gay friends I have. I lived in the fucking East Village. We would say all kinds of shit, like the different, and they don't care. They don't care. They say the same stuff. So like I don't even know where half of this shit is coming from. You know what I mean? Like,
one thing I've said this a few times lately to people, and when I talking to the young lady the other day, Kat Lively, Hollywood writer, because she's in Tennessee for a little while. I'm in Tennessee. I'm not in Nashville. I'm in the fucking Appalachian Mountains here. I mean, every guy around has a ZZ Top beard. I came here I don't know why. I came here for something. One thing I tell everybody is that these people here talk like we used to talk. They say, they'll say something like, they'll say all kinds of shit, but they get along. They all get along. They're a bunch of homophobic racists. No, they're not. I go in a grocery store called Food City. You'll see a young black guy and a young white girl, can't be more than 20 years old, the two of them with 2 or 3 kids, and nobody even bats an eye. Nobody's noticing this, or a white girl or white guy with a black girl, and we got 3 or 4 kids, and no more than 22 years old. Nobody's looking at them.
Yeah.
You see gay guys walking around, clearly gay. A lot of lesbians down here. They open up bee farms, beekeepers and stuff. A lot of that stuff. No, the girl who does our pest control here, she comes in here. She goes, my wife and I, we have a garden. Nobody gives a shit. But I will tell you this. I'll be talking to a neighbor, which I did, and I said to a neighbor, I said, who lives in that house over there? She goes, well, a couple queers live in that house. Nice fellers, though. We had them over for dinner. In other words, they'll say stuff.
Yeah.
They're not worried about what they're saying, but in the end, and I, having lived in Westchester County and Connecticut and lived it all around the country, I think the most racist vibe I've ever felt was in the suburbs of New York. Suburbs of New York and New England. The heaviest racist vibe I've ever got. Parts of Boston, things like that. But traveling around the country, I just don't see that. And the South is like, they say crazy shit, but they all get along just fucking fine.
Well, and a lot of time, like a lot of them, at least in my experience, like, don't get me wrong, like, I met Daniel Carver, the head of the KKK, a bunch of times on Stern. And
right.
There is that kind of racism.
Yes, there is. Yes.
But outside of that, like you're saying, like you go down south and stuff, and the majority of the people down there, they're just like, they're good people, and they like being friendly, and they like being helpful, and they'll give you fucking food out of the refrigerator, and they really don't care what color and stuff you are.
Right.
They may say, racial slurs and stuff like that, but they're not mean or malicious. Like it's just kind of how they talk. Like I grew up, with very old school Italians, and like my grandparents, and like I heard every fucking thing you could think of. But you know why? Like my grandfather, like he would, like, I remember his funeral, and there was every race, sex under the sun there. And everyone used to say, when I was poor and I couldn't afford like pork chops and stuff like that, your grandfather used to just give them to me.
Oh,
your grandfather would like just give us steaks. Like he didn't give a fuck. I also grew up like that too, where like, people are just people and you treat people right,
Well, my first wife, who was my high school sweetheart, we had 3 kids together. Her family, Calabrese, right? Calabrese?
Yeah, Calabrese.
Strict Calabrese, right? I mean, the fucking grandmother wore brogans. She'd be soaking octopus in the fucking thing. They were more
They were
Italian
as
than Italian.
dago as you could get.
The whole fucking thing, right?
Yeah, they were making wine and fucking, they
Yeah.
had stinky cheese hanging from the ceiling.
Oh, they had the soupy down in the thing. Anyway, so I ended up marrying her. I think, well, she was a very cute girl, and I married her because I loved her. But I think most of it was really her family. They just loved me. They just pulled me in and fed me, and just unconditional love until you decide you're going to get divorced. Then they would, we'll kill you if you ever come back again.
And even though you were a Jew, they still treated you like a person.
My father's Jewish, my mother's Irish Catholic. Well, here's what they really liked. My father was a famous doctor. My father was Dr. Gumple. They all went to Dr. Gumple. The doctor's son is going to marry my daughter. Oh, they were, because they're all hypochondriacs and stuff. So it was. But the thing is I saw more shit among the Italians. If a Sicilian, the grandmother, because we had, friends to our church and stuff would come in, and some of them were Sicilian Italians, and they'd say they don't want the Sicilians in the house. I swear, there was more racist stuff within.
Yeah, but that's with every race. Like, I worked in some of the worst neighborhoods, like ghettos. Like, I worked in Patterson and Jersey City and Trenton and Camden, and all the blacks would talk shit about the other blacks, and they'd be like, oh, you don't want to mess with those guys. Like, they were more racist against their own kind. Asians, I worked with a lot of guys from China and stuff like that. I would go down to Chinatown with them, and they would be talking more shit on the other Asians than you would. So I think in every, Jewish people, dude, I live, and my restaurant is in Jewish Central. At Cherry Hill, New Jersey, they all talk shit on each other. Like, I will walk around the dining room saying hi to people, and they'd be like, oh, talk about those Jews over there, and and then they get out 5 minutes later and be like kidding around with one another. So, I think inside the race, races,
I think that's more intense. I think that's more intense and exists today more than against each other's races. I think more of the intensity is there, and that's probably.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I know with Asian women, because I lived in Hawaii for years, Helen made it very clear, because sometimes I'd say, that's a pretty girl. I said, are you Japanese or are you Chinese? They'd look at you, they'd want you just don't say that. You don't.
You got to know your
Chinese woman if she's Japanese, and you don't say, are you Korean? You'll get killed. Like, they hate each other.
Yes. That is one thing I do now.
If there's a party with 300 people and there's a Korean woman and a Japanese woman, they will get together and talk. They'll bond together. But in the black community, I know that the darker the skin and things like this, and the Haitians and the Jamaicans are not welcome in. Jamaicans don't. It's a sad state of affairs. But I just hate that our kids are being raised in this atmosphere of not being able to. Because I'll still say something to my kids. I'll say, oh, he's a fucking Dad, I wish you wouldn't say that around the kids, like the grandkids. I'm like, I'm not saying anything. I'm not using the N-word. I'm not saying something horrible. I'm like, what? I can't say that word. Can't say midget. I can't say words.
Well, this is my thing. I've never heard Beetlejuice cry because someone called him a midget. I wrote this big bit with, and it involved a bunch of midgets. And this was a couple of years ago when I was doing stand-up. And I called a handful of
midgets.
Well, basically, I called a bunch of managers who represented them, and I actually talked to a bunch of them. And I said to them, oh, how do you want me to refer to you? Do you want me to say little person? And they were all like, we don't give a
anything
fuck.
you say, Paul. Anything you want to say.
They were like, you're already part of the Lollipop Guild. Look how fucking short you are. So you're already in with us. But, no, they were like, we don't care. We think this is fucking stupid. I was at the GLAAD Awards last year, which is the
Oh,
biggest
yeah.
gay and
I remember you
lesbian
saying
fucking charity in the world. I was probably the only straight person in the whole out of the fucking 5,000 people that were there, and they all think this shit is stupid. They all think it's stupid. They're like, it's bringing more hate to us than we ever had before. Like, we made all these strides to like be accepted, and now we feel like it's being ripped apart by all this cancel culture.
Well, yeah, because there's appointed leaders all around the place, politically driven to keep us all separated.
Well, it's that, and it's these people who were so afraid to get sued that they stir up bullshit to protect themselves because they don't want to get sued. So, and now all these people got to follow suit. Like, get the fuck out of here,
Well, that's one of the things I kind of like down here in Tennessee, because I talk about my checklist. I go through my checklist every day. There's like 10 things on it. And right now, there's about 3 things I'm not happy with here. But the other 7 are okay. If it ever gets to 5, I'll leave. But it's all these preconceived things, I mean, Helen's, there's only 2 Asian women in this town. Helen's one of them. The other one owns the Chinese restaurant. You know what I mean?
So Helen's got to open up either the massage parlor or the nail salon.
We're working on it.
Okay. Yeah.
But and that's why I want to talk to you about too. We got to get some money for that. But so
as long as I get free massages and happy
funny
endings,
things,
I'm fine.
funny little things will happen at times. Like just in the 4 or 5 months we've been here, people will come up to go, "Oh, I really enjoyed that Mugu Gai Pan the other day." She said, "I don't own the fucking Chinese." Like, and she looks nothing like that other woman. Like nothing like her.
Yeah.
I do tell the story about shortly before moving down here, I had a stroke when I was up in Connecticut, and it kind of threw off a few things, my equilibrium, some other stuff, right? So when I was down here, I was still walking with a cane. I'm not walking with a cane now. I'm walking with a cane when I got down here. And I went into the supermarket here. And I had one of my equilibrium things, and I kind of went down, and I slipped, and I fell down on the floor. And the guys came around the counter. I was more embarrassed than anything. And I just couldn't get up quickly and they said, "Are you okay? You okay?"
Adopt a dog. Fucking cat.
I was going to go look for
banging on my door. Normally I don't got pussy banging on the door like this, especially now that I'm a single dad. But
yeah, I know.
And the only pussy I get that does it is this fucking cat.
Yeah.
Look, he's gonna jump up here. See?
Oh, you have a cat. See, I've never been a cat person until I had my cat in Connecticut. Then I became a cat person.
Well, he's a Mancoon. He's a giant. That's why he's blocking the fucking. Will you get out of the way, you dick?
My goodness, what a doll. Beautiful.
Mother was a big cat person.
I'm going to look for a Shih Tzu. I want a Shih Tzu.
Okay.
So anyway, what happened was I'm there laying on the ground in front of the meat counter there. And they're like, "Are you okay?" I go, "Yeah, are you alone?" And I'm like, it's so embarrassed. I said, "My wife's somewhere here." Well, I think she's down at the dairy. I said, she's Asian. She's an Asian woman. Okay, they come back, right? And they bring back like this 85-year-old Asian woman. And I'm on the floor looking. I'm still on the floor because I'm trying to get up, but my cane is slipping on the waxy floor. And I look up, and this little Asian woman, like looking down at me. And I'm like, "This is not my wife." But I later said to the guy, "How did you get her to come down?" He says, "Your husband's on the floor." She goes, "Okay." But her husband died like a couple of years ago. So she's like, "Oh,
that's pretty funny."
It was so stupid. Then almost Helen comes along like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Like, I thought you were the token Asian person in the town. And little did I know there was one other 80-year-old Asian lady.
Well, we can't go to a Chinese. There's a very good Chinese restaurant here, but we can't go there because people come.
Don't you get free food because she's Asian too?
No, you would think that, but no, it's just if we
sit down,
people will go over to Helen and keep asking her for more soy sauce or something like that.
Oh, Jesus.
The good thing about Helen has a great sense of humor about all this shit. She gets it completely. Her favorite person was Don Rickles.
Rickles.
Yeah, and she always told me, she said, with all your connections in Hollywood, can't you, before he passes away, can't you get me into a Don Rickles and get me in the front row so he could fucking go at me, So I give her credit for that. She's always wanted to do. And I always said,
awesome.
yeah, don't worry. Joan Rivers and him did shows together in Connecticut. I said, I'll get you in. And I never followed through on getting her into that show. It would have been interesting.
Joan was a cool person. But all right, so listen, I'm going to end this because we've been going for a little over 2 hours now, and
Really?
then I have to edit all this. So,
Jesus, good luck.
Yeah, thanks.
Could you take out this chin? I'm getting a little bit of turkey chin.
I got some CGI that I could put in there. I got an AI CGI program that I'll use to make it look like Brad Pitt, 20 years ago.
Yeah. And the bags on the eyes. I always putting Preparation H under my eyes. So
isn't that for your balls?
Ass.
Okay. I didn't know you put ass cream under your eyes. Is that?
I think most Preparation H sold today is for women putting it under their eye bags.
Really?
Yeah, I learned it from Andrea. She taught me that. Yeah.
Okay, you learn something new every day. So when I start getting bad eye bags, I'll put ball cream on my eyes.
Yeah.
All righty. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, my friend. I will talk to you soon. Yeah, no, we'll hopefully do this every week.
Because things happen. There's so much happening every day, and every day there's something I say. I wish I could fucking talk to Paul about this. And you're busy. You actually have a life. Yeah.
Well, and I think even the clips and stuff I played, I was hoping, one thing that I'd like to do with that is you kind of giving advice to people on how to write good scenes like that, and your reaction, your disgust, I think is hilarious because I get disgusted too. When I saw that trailer for The Beekeeper, I was like, you gotta fucking be kidding me. This is the number one fucking someone pitched this and fucking Miramax said, this is an amazing idea. We got to put $100 million into this. And I can't get a fucking script sold. And I'm like, I know my shit's got to be better than The Beekeeper.
It's very frustrating for me because I have had I've worked with three, maybe 4 Academy Award winning directors who attach themselves to my script. Say, I want to direct that movie. And we worked for years trying to get them done. But they're too busy doing, other stupid movies. So it's frustrating.
That's okay. Things are going to start happening. This alone, Neal, me and you getting on here is going to start bringing big studios to us, and they're going to want us to write The Beekeeper 3.
Yeah.
The
bee bastards. The bee bastards back.
Stuck in the honey again.
Manuka this.
Yeah. So we'll be there, in the hive.